Magical girl sight. Imagine you're an anime girl. And imagine you've gone through one of the most awful and traumatic situations in your life, and while you're reeling from the pain, your laptop suddenly opens up to a strange website, something like www.magicalgirl.com. It offers you a magical power that could completely flip your life upside down. And of course, because, well, you've just gone through something traumatic, you don't really question it that much and you just accept it. Suddenly, you're given a magical wand and you're thrown into the midst of complete chaos where magical girls are unaliving each other, and the power that was supposed to make your life better actually just made it 100 times worse. This anime is what happens when you take the concept of a magical girl anime and add so much edginess that just even thinking about this anime could give you a paper cut. This anime tries to tell a deep and meaningful story about mental health, depression, and finding hope in an unfortunate and horrible world, but ends up actually just treating mental illnesses like different Pokemon types. Like, we got a depression type Pokemon, an anxiety type Pokemon. I made a poll recently for my members to decide which anime I should review next, and Magical Girl Sight won by a landslide. I didn't really know what to expect going in. All I heard was that it was like an edgy teenager wrote a magical girl anime, and I clapped my hands together like a little brat, ready to roast the ever-living shit out of this garbage. So I was right, but I was also wrong. This show is pretty trash, but it's also not the worst thing I've ever watched. In fact, I think this is the most conflicted I've ever felt about an anime I reviewed on this channel, because there are aspects of it that I really truly did want to like, but ultimately the show ended up shooting itself in the foot many times during the duration of the 12 episodes. Hello everybody, my name is Leo Hashi, and today I watched Magical Girl Sight so you don't have to. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see me slowly but surely lose my mind. And if you want to support my suffering even more, consider becoming a member. It helps out a lot. Before I move on, I'm just gonna throw in a giant trigger warning for this video. This anime does deal with some very heavy topics, including self-harm, suicide, abuse, and sexual assault. So if any of these topics make you uncomfortable, please watch with a lot of caution. I'm also gonna be straight up and let you know that, yeah, unfortunately, a lot of words are gonna have to be censored for this video, okay? I know some people don't like that, and it's not like I want to censor everything too, but hey, bills have to be paid, and YouTube can be pretty head-ass with these things. So yeah, I'm gonna be a basic YouTuber and say stuff like unalive and whatever because I have to. Magical Girl Sight is a 2018 anime based on a manga of the same name. It has a 6.52 out of 10 on my anime list and a 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb. Compared to some other anime that I've watched and reviewed on my channel, these scores are surprisingly decent, which I guess isn't saying a lot because on an American report card, these scores would still be considered an F. Wait, actually, I think the my anime list score would be considered a D. Either way, still not great. I think the easiest way for me to explain my thought processes and feelings about this edgy mess of a show would be to go through each episode and explain to you the events that happen. But before we dive into the actual show and the insanity surrounding it, I do want to talk about something a bit more lighthearted: Japanese snacks. This video is sponsored by Tokyo Tree and Sakura Co. Tokyo Tree is a fun and exclusive monthly snack box packed with Japan's coolest and craziest treats. Each month, you'll get a rare Kit Kat flavor, limited edition chips, noodles, and the latest treats from Japan straight to you. Sakurako is a monthly Japanese artisan snack box that supports local makers across Japan. Each box is carefully curated with traditional and seasonal snacks like mochi, dorayaki, and more, including signature Japanese teas and an exclusive homeware item. What? You guys already know what time it is. It's time to unbox. First, I'm gonna begin with the Tokyo Treat box for the month. Got some salted caramel Kit Kat, vegetable animal crackers, melon panda cookies, peach flavored paw candies. This is the animal unchoko. It's chocolate and it's supposed to come out of their butt like poop. Grape paw gummies. Terrific! Tiger cognac jelly. Lucky giraffe mayonnaise curry chips. Fiery fox radish bites. Black bear peanut balls. Chocolate monkey biscuits. Chocolate panda cake. Cheese scones. And a pack of instant yakisoba. The time to sample has come. We gotta start with the Kit Kat. Look at that. That's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Salted caramel, it's good. Let's try the cognac jelly. That's good. The texture is a little different from like regular jelly, but I actually like this better. Ugh, that's good. I mean, I have to try this, right? The poop chocolate. That's literally what it translates to. It's called unchoko, which is the words for poop and chocolate like combined together. So here's the dog face, here's the butt. I'm finding this a lot funnier than I really should. Ooh, simple. You know, it's chocolate. There's a twinge of the poop taste in there. That's a lie. Okay, it tastes like regular chocolate. It's good. Anyways, let's move on to the Sakurako box for the month. This month's Sakurako theme is Savoring Osaka. And of course, the information booklet contains a lot of information about Osaka. This is Hinako Warabi Mochi, Fukamushi Sencha, which is a unique type of green tea. Osaka Mochi Castella, strawberry cream cookie, strawberry cakes, egg koban senbei, kokuto and sugar hoten, pickled ginger crisps, ginger okoshi, Osaka arare, Osaka octopus rice cracker, senshi onion sabure, miyako kombu, and we got some choco kaki. And every month, Sakurako comes with a traditional Japanese item. This month's is a daruma tenugui. If you don't know what tenugui is, it's a versatile cloth that you can use for a lot of different things, including things like hand towels or just regular home decor. There's a lot of uses for this, but it looks very nice. All right, now let's sample some of these. I'm gonna try the pickled ginger crisps. Ooh. Ooh. You know, the traditional like red pickled ginger. It tastes like that, but not as strong, and it's like a lot more savory. I want to try one of these strawberry stick cakes. There's like a little strawberry cream filling inside of it. I mean, come on. Yeah, of course it's gonna be good. I'm gonna try the Osaka arare, which is a type of rice cracker. I mean, it's good. It's good. It's got perfect mix of sweet and savory. Of course, I had to try the sencha. It tasted like green tea, but I got a little bit of that umami flavor that everyone be talking about. I mean, if you enjoy tea, then like, I don't see why you wouldn't enjoy this one. Yum! But yeah, that's it for the upcoming month's Tokyo Treat and Sakurako box. If you guys are interested in purchasing one for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, you can click the links in the description below and use my code LEOHASHI at checkout to get $5 off of your first order of Tokyo Treat or Sakurako. Thank you so much to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. And now let's get back to the main video, shall we? Alright, now let's dive into the first episode, which is basically the same thing as diving headfirst into a pool of lava in Minecraft and losing all of your precious diamond goodies. All jokes aside, episode 1 of this show might be one of the most brutal, over-the-top horror shows that I've ever seen in anything. After a mid-ass opening song, we meet Aya Asagiri, the main character of the show. Her first line of dialogue is, "I think about death every day." And the first thing we see is her, well, trying to step into the tracks while a train is coming at her full speed, but she snaps out of her trance-like state and she realizes what she just tried to do. What a start to the show, huh? Anyways, we now spend the next 15 minutes or so just watching this poor innocent girl go through some of the nastiest, most awful abuse I've seen in anything. It feels like I'm just having trauma shoved down my gullet over and over again without any moment to actually breathe. When she goes to school, she opens her locker to find her shoes full of razors and other nasty shit. Someone puts some nasty gunk on her chair in the classroom, and her desk has all sorts of terrible stuff written on it, things I'm not gonna be translating or saying out loud. And even if this is a visible thing in that classroom, her teacher just tells her to sit down. Like, bro, are you blind or just a terrible teacher? Then we get to watch her get beaten up by a group of bullies. Not just once, mind you, but multiple times throughout this episode. At some point, even shoving her head down a toilet multiple times. Like, it's fucked up. And at some point, I just started questioning, why was I even having to watch this? We also learn about her home life. Her mother seems to be a bystander, while her father is an awareness-lacking dolt who puts way too much pressure on her older brother Kaname and his education and future. And I guess this pressure was too much for Kaname, as he is now a sadistic piece of human garbage who sees Aya more as a punching bag than a sister. Her brother constantly abuses her in order to quote-unquote relieve the stress or whatever, but he's laughing like an absolute maniac every time he does this, and he actually seems to relish in this process of stress relief with the heaviest quotation marks physically possible. Kaname is, well, he's the worst. I hate him so much. The one thing that gives Aya any reprieve from all of this is a stray cat that she sometimes feeds and bonded with. She even got this cat a little collar as a gift. Aww, at least there's one thing that gives her a bit of reprieve from all of this horrible abuse, right? I can finally take a breather from having to witness this poor girl go through some of the most horrible shit caused by some of the most comically one-dimensional and evil characters I've ever seen. Well, the writers heard my little plea for a break, I guess, and decided to double down on the traumatizing edginess instead, because unfortunately, one of the bullies actually saw Aya interacting with the stray cat. One night, a web page on her laptop opens up to a website called the Magical Girl site. A creepy ass image of a girl shows up saying, "I'll give you magical powers." The page is like, "How unfortunate, how unfortunate," and tells Aya that they could give her a magical power, but Aya's like, "Fuck this shit," and closes the page before the monologue can even finish. The next day, on the way to school, Aya sees that people are gathered at the train tracks, and although she doesn't look directly at what had happened, it was very obvious that a stray cat was unfortunately hit by the train. And we all know who fucking did it, right? Aya opens her locker to find a gun with a heart-shaped barrel and a message from the Magical Girl site. And once again, We are forced to watch Aya be horribly bullied by her comically evil bullies. Who the fuck is enjoying this shit? Oh, and it gets even worse because this upperclassman who looks way too fucking old to be in high school comes into the room and he's all like, I can pop her shit. Bro, are you fucking kidding me? What? Is this real? Jesus. So yeah, I won't go into the nitty gritty of it, but basically he attempts to sexually assault her, but she shoves him off and runs away. The bullies are just sitting there watching and going, hell yeah, go get him. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? How messed up in the head do you have to be to actively cheer this kind of behavior on like it's the goddamn Super Bowl? Like, at this point, these people around Aya who constantly torment her just feel comically evil. And it's not even the good kind of comically evil either. I know I bring this character up a lot in my videos, but Dio from Jojo is a big example of a character I find to be comically evil, but also extremely charming in a weird way and entertaining to watch. In fact, Dio's definitely done things that can be considered way more evil than these bullies in Magical Girl Sight. What separates Dio from these bullies though is that Dio isn't just a one-dimensional clown show. He's got a lot going on, whether it's his charming personality or his iconic screaming noises like or whatever he does in the show. The human villains of Magical Girl Sight are basically all just one-dimensional pieces of trash that make the show really hard to watch. The bottom line is, this is a show, a form of entertainment, and we watch shows to be entertained. The people around Aya did the opposite of making this show entertaining. Every time they were on screen, all I could do is just roll my eyes and groan because these villains are not entertaining to watch. Anyways, Aya hides from the bullies who give chase. She is unfortunately found by the upperclassmen who holds her down to sexually assault her again. This has to be a record for something, right? Like, having 2 attempted scenes in a single episode has to be a record of some kind. One of the bullies then takes out the collar given to the stray by Aya earlier and is talking about how the guts were everywhere. Oh, Jesus. As she's being actively held down by the upperclassmen, and I'm just watching this like, why am I watching this? What the fuck? This is trashy as hell. Aya, driven into a corner, takes out the heart-shaped guns and shoots it towards them. A giant heart comes out of the gun and makes the 2 pieces of shit disappear into thin air until a loud noise is heard from the train tracks. It was the bully and upperclassmen getting hit by the train. Aya obviously is shocked as she begins to cry blood, which apparently is a symptom of using the magical wand or whatever. She locks herself in a room after this incident. Back in school, the bullies begin taking their anger and sadness out on Aya, saying, you're the only one who has a grudge on them, even though they started the bullying in the first place. But anyway, the main bully, named Sarina, a character so detestable that every time she was on screen, I just wanted to turn the show off, takes out an actual box cutter and attacks Aya, to which even the other bully is saying that it's too much. When you got one of your comically evil minions saying that you're going too far, then you genuinely might be going a bit too far, maybe, for real? Anyway, before anything can actually happen, time stops. A classmate of Aya's, Tsuyono Yatsumura, steps in to save her. She has a magical power in which she can stop time. She takes the box cutter from Sarina's hands and uses it onto Sarina to cut her, not deep enough to actually unalive her, but it will definitely hurt. Yatsumura then says, Miss Asagiri, we need you, as the episode comes to a close. So yeah, that was episode 1. Just episode 1. The show immediately decides to kick your ass off of a cliff right as it begins, and you don't even get a chance to question it. No chance for any reprieve. Honestly, I felt like this episode was tasteless as fuck. Maybe it was just me. Okay, I mean, I doubt it was just me that felt this way, but I found the first episode to be one of the most miserable viewing experiences of any show I've ever had. The main character, Aya, just goes through the worst and most traumatic events humanly possible in a single 20-minute episode. I'm not saying no one goes through horrible stuff like this or whatever. It's not even about that. I don't want to watch a poor girl get abused and sexually assaulted twice for basically no reason except for existing for like 20 minutes straight. You know what I'm saying? The good part is, after this episode, the edginess of this show does slow down just a tad. That doesn't mean it goes away, but we won't be forced to watch 2 attempted assaults in a 5-minute time span anymore. But honestly, that's not even saying that much at all. Either way, I don't blame anyone who decided to drop the show after watching episode 1, because it's definitely a nightmare roller coaster ride with seemingly no end to it. Even for me, the first episode made a horrible first impression, and it never truly went away, even until now. Episode 2 begins with Yatsumura talking about her dark, sort of unhinged philosophy. She's like, if they're bothersome, then just get rid of the trash. Basically, just unalive everyone who does bad things. As magical girls, they were given the right to do all of this. This show is so damn edgy, both literally and figuratively, okay? I mean, the amount of box cutters that show up in this show is astounding. They go to Aya's house, where Kaname and Yatsumura have a very standoffish and menacing encounter. Yatsumura can tell Kaname is fake as f***. Anyway, Anyways, we learned that every magical girl is given a magical stick, and these sticks have their own unique power. Aya's power is instant teleportation. She can shoot out hearts that instantly teleport whoever gets hit to wherever Aya wants them to go. However, using the magical powers too much can lead to disastrous consequences. Every magical girl has an emblem show up on their arm after using the power, and the more you use these powers, the emblem disappears over time, and when the emblem is completely gone, the magical girl dies. There are also other magical girls out there who have found the site and have received powers of their own. Yatsumura apparently had an information broker who was also a magical girl, but they lost communication for some reason. There's a serial unaliver going around unaliving magical girls and stealing their magical tricks. I know, I'm sorry, I have to keep saying unalive, I'm sorry. Yatsumura refers to this person as the magical hunter. Before she disappeared, the info broker sent Yatsumura a picture of the culprit, and Yatsumura asks Aya if they can work together and catch the culprit. Aya, understandably freaking out, ends up going to sleep as Yatsumura promises to protect her for just this one night. And we find out that the next target of this magical hunter is none other than Aya. Wow, what a coincidence. Anyway, this pink-haired girl, who is basically the anime's fan service figure, shows up out of nowhere the next day and tries to unalive Aya. She summons some kind of magical barrier that prevents Yatsumura from using her powers on her. It turns out that this pink-haired girl is none other than Rina Shioi, the information broker that supposedly disappeared. It turns out that the broker was the magical hunter the entire time and had even used another magical stick power to change her entire appearance. As a side note, it was a really weird 180 slap to my face, going from episode 1 having some of the most nasty and horrible things to episode 2 just having this blatant fan service character with angles of her jiggle physics just being shoved down my gullet. Like, how do you even react to that? Aya was afraid to use her stick because of the incident with the bully and upperclassmen, but she ends up using it anyways and teleports Shioi to a place that wouldn't unalive her. This, along with Yatsumura's time-stopping ability, allows them to tie Shioi up and interrogate her. Shioi says that she wanted to survive until the end. More sticks means she survives longer. She had apparently met with the administrator of the magical girl site before she disappeared. On the website, she rubbed the girl's ear, which accidentally ended up leading her to a countdown page for this upcoming event called the Tempest. When the Tempest comes, humanity will disappear. However, before being able to reveal anything else, Shioi begins to cough blood and becomes unresponsive. They call an ambulance as this mystery lingers in the air. We then cut to a different girl who is looking at an image of Shioi, repeatedly saying, "I want to unalive her, I want to unalive her, I want to unalive her, I want." She seems very stable. Episode 3 begins with this random idol-obsessed dude just watching TV. Turns out, he's fallen in love with an idol named Nijimin to an extremely unhealthy point where his only reason to continue living is Nijimin. Oh, by the way, Nijimin is the girl from the end of episode 2 that was basically saying she wants to absolutely obliterate Shioi. Nobody in this show is mentally stable. Shioi is alive in the hospital, but her internal organs are messed up like an elderly person's. It's unsure if she'll ever regain consciousness, and this is because she kept constantly using the stick powers, and she kept using different stick powers too, which ended up causing her a lot of bodily damage. They need her alive and conscious because they need more information about this Tempest that she was talking about. Aya has an idea. Find a magical stick that could somehow wake Shioi up from her unconsciousness. They go through Shioi's Pokédex of magical girls, and it turns out that Nijimin is also a magical girl. They go to Nijimin's live concert and meet and greet event, where we see the Nijimin stand from the beginning of the episode as well. Anyways, they stop time and Yatsumura thanks Aya and compliments her strategy, and they teleport Nijimin out of the venue. Nijimin then gets really excited to meet other magical girls, and the other two are so shocked by how nonchalant and excited she was. I won't even lie, after having to suffer through the first 2 episodes of this show, it was nice that I could actually kind of laugh at something on the show. I thought this was pretty funny. Anyway, they explain the situation to Nijimin, but before the talk could go anywhere, Nijimin is found by the staff of the venue, and it's like, "Where are you? It's a mess. Everyone wants to meet you." And so she has to go back to the meet and greet. They end up meeting up later at Nijimin's residence, where she has a bunch of dudes just cleaning the house for her. And guess what? In classic anime fashion, we find out that Nijimin's magical stick is actually her panties. I can't, dude. I can't. Nijimin's magical girl power is that when she wears the magical stick, aka the panties, she is able to control anyone. She can command anyone to do anything, and they have to do it regardless of if they want to or not. Man, like, after watching episode 1, all of this feels so fucking weird to me. Like, hey, you just watched Aya go through some unimaginable mental torture, but also magical panties! It's just so stereotypically anime that I'm not even shocked at this point anymore. I'm just rolling my eyes so damn hard. Back home, Kaname is starting to go absolutely ballistic because his punching bag hasn't been there as much as usual. And again, what an absolute piece of shit. Like, hey, asshole, what if, I don't know, you went to a boxing gym or something, or found other ways of stress relief that doesn't involve abusing your little sister? Like, anyways, Yatsumura asks Nijimin if she's interacted with any other magical girls. Nijimin talks about her best friend, Mikado, who was apparently unalived by Shioi Shioi. However, as soon as this topic comes up, Nijimin completely loses her composure and begins to show an extremely unhinged side of her personality, even biting her nails until they actually break. She wants to unalive Shioi so badly, but then she just suddenly switches back to her normal self. They exchange contact info and the talk ends. Sarina is revealed to be alive in the hospital. And at this point, as much as yeah, I guess I have a smidge of sympathy for her injury, I just hate seeing this motherfucker on screen. She spent the entire show so far being so comically evil. It's hard to even want to watch her presence. Like, I was hoping she'd fade into obscurity after this, but it looks like not only is she still in the show, she is here to stay. Sarina overhears Aya and Yatsumura talking about magical girls as they walk away, and Sarina sneaks into Shioi's room where the administrator of the magical girl site, Nana, is standing over Shioi. She says that Shioi has been disqualified, and then turns to see Sarina walk into the room. Kaname also begins to do his own snooping as he investigates Aya's search history and finds the magical girl site. Episode 3 ends here, and by this point I have two thoughts. The first one being, hey, it's nice seeing Yatsumura and Aya's friendship slowly developing into something really substantial. But on the other hand, my other thought was, holy fuck, man, everyone in this show is absolutely unhinged. Episode 4 begins with Sarina finding the magical girl site and accessing the Tempest page. Turns out she's also now a magical girl. Fuck. My wish to not see this character in the show just never comes true anymore. It turns out Nana, the site administrator, was the one who asked Shioi to collect magical girl sticks for some reason. But now that she's out of commission, Sarina is gonna be the next magical hunter. Sarina gets this yo-yo shaped magical stick that allows her to slice pretty much anything. Now equipped with a deadly weapon and the knowledge of magical girls, Sarina continues to talk about getting revenge. Yatsumura asks why Aya was being bullied, and we see a flashback to Aya when she first transferred to this school. She ends up sitting in front of Sarina, who introduces herself to Aya, but Aya is intimidated and doesn't give much of a response. Aya seems to suffer from very severe social anxiety, which makes it hard for her to even do basic communication sometimes. Sarina actually defends Aya from a teacher at some point, which I guess is a nice thing to do, but then they all corner Aya being all like, hey, don't you owe us something, you know, like a thank you? Like, okay, sure. True altruism right there. Sarina is then like, I hate people who can't give even a simple thank you. And then out of nowhere, they just start treating Aya like utter shit and make her life into a living hell. And honestly, this did not improve Sarina in my eyes at all. In fact, I feel like it made it worse because it felt like her motivations are just so surface level and shitty that it's just like, she's just a terrible person. Like, if you're gonna have a sadistic bully like Sarina, at least give us a bit more backstory or substance, right? Anyways, Aya blames herself for all this because, quote, if I were a person who can communicate, then it wouldn't be like this, end quote. And Yatsumura tells her to stop blaming herself. Yatsumura wants Aya to become someone stronger, who can defend the world on her own. Aya also says that Yatsumura is her first actual friend. And despite the show sucking ass, I still genuinely enjoy the friendship that these two share. Yatsumura at her home then suddenly begins to cough up blood and falls over. Back at Aya's house, we see Kaname getting punched by his dad for not doing well on his tests. God, it's not just Kaname that sucks. The whole family just sucks ass, I guess. Papa Asagiri out here single-handedly perpetuating this cycle of violence in this whole family. Kaname then walks down the street calling everyone scum in his head, replacing everyone's head with meatballs. He's like, why do I have to breathe the same air as these scum? Maybe I'm not human. Maybe I'm a god trapped in a human's body. Okay, buddy. Maybe you might be stressed out, but bro, that ego is not normal, dude. He walks into a convenience store where the Nijimin stand is actually working as a cashier. However, the Nijimin stand suddenly sees something on his phone and begins to cry. Turns out, Nijimin is retiring as an idol. Oh no! Oh, what? Not my bias! My bias is retiring! And of course, Kaname gets really pissed at this because how dare you ignore a god? Bro, what's up with these people? Holy shit. Sarina is back at school. Oh, also, it turns out that Nijimin transferred to this school and now she's in Aya's class. Apparently, Nijimin decided to take a break from idol life because she wants to spend more time looking for Shioi in order to get her revenge. And of course, Sarina comes in with her usual garbage demeanor and decides to ruin everything by showing Nijimin a picture of Shioi in the hospital, letting her know where Shioi is located. Yatsumura ended up not showing up to school, so Aya, worried, stops by her house to see if she's okay. She finds Yatsumura on the ground, unconscious, and there's a guy just hooked up to this giant machine. It turns out that Yatsumura had used her stick too much and was starting to feel the effects of it. We also learned that this guy in the machine had unalived Yatsumura's parents. Yatsumura used to be a happy child who was loved by both of her parents until one night she just tragically finds them both dead, murdered by a burglar. And this burglar is like, I won't hurt you now because you're going to be so beautiful when you get older. What the fuck is Jesus! I hated saying that. That was the nastiest shit that's ever come out of my mouth. But that's like the actual dialogue in the show. It's just absolutely disgusting and nasty. It's just, I mean, I feel like this burglar guy isn't getting that much sympathy from many people after this, to be honest. Anyways, after this horrible event, Yatsumura received her magical stick power to stop time, and she's only been living for revenge ever since, putting the burglar through pure torture. Episode 5 starts with Yatsumura telling us that she wants to make sure the burglar gets what he deserves. Aya then begins to cry for Yatsumura, empathizing with her pain and suffering she must have been carrying for so long on her own. Since Yatsumura has done so much for Aya, it was now Aya's turn to be there for Yatsumura. Suddenly, Sarina walks into the house like an unwanted guest for both the characters and for myself. Get out! Get out of my house! Nijimin also arrives at the hospital and enters Shioi's room. Oh no. Sarina begins to lash out like a little brat and uses her newly acquired magical stick to attack. And to be honest, yeah, I thought she was a shit villain, but also, I have to admit, her yo-yo powers? Kinda cool, man. Anyway, Sarina ends up unaliving the burglar trapped in the machine, basically just removing Yatsumura's one reason to stay alive, her desire for revenge. Sarina continues to monologue about revenge and whatever, but Yatsumura finally channels the audience's hater energy and actually says what was on my mind the entire time. It was Sarina's own fault this happened. She started doing terrible things to Aya, and that Sarina was just playing victim. And I'm just here like, thank you! Thank you so much, Yatsumura! Thank you for the goddamn read! That was so good! Before anything can happen, Nijimin calls Sarina and reports that she's unable to harm Shioi because they put up a barrier around her. Nijimin gets seen by a nurse, so she escapes before anything else happens. Yatsumura had combined different stick powers to protect Shioi, which obviously had put a lot of strain on her body. Aya then finally begins to talk back to Sarina, and they begin to actually fight each other. And I won't even lie, this fight scene, not bad. Aya then sacrifices her own body and lifespan to protect Yatsumura, even resorting to using multiple stick powers at once. Aya and Sarina continue to argue, an argument that ends with Sarina basically just saying that she doesn't give a single fuck about Aya's feelings, and Aya understandably begins to break down. Like, Jesus Christ, Sarina cannot become any more unlikable than this. Because of their intense battle, the building begins to collapse. As Sarina is about to be crushed by the rubble, Aya teleports her away and saves her life despite the horrible argument they had seconds earlier. Sarina realizes this and heads off on a journey of her own character development. The building collapses and there's hella casualties. They find Aya and Yatsumura still in the barrier protected from the rubble. We cut back to the most pointless character in the show, the Nijimin stan, who accidentally walks past Nijimin, the love of his life. However, Nijimin is reeling from being unable to kill Shioi and realizes that Aya and Yatsumura knew about Shioi the whole time but didn't tell her, leading her to feel betrayed. Nijimin then goes to Aya's house and Kaname opens the door for her. We also see a new character appear, this girl with white hair. She walks into Shioi's room in the hospital and begins to hyperventilate. She then takes out a box cutter, which is at this point this show's mascot. Like Pokemon got Pikachu, Magical Girl site has box cutter chew. It's just, man, it's just way too edgy for me, man. Episode 6 then begins with Nijimin being angry as all hell, but when she looks up to see Kaname, she begins to absolutely full on simp for this dude. Like, she's hyperventilating and nose bleeding, like she's just met her K-pop bias or something in person. Kaname tells her to come in the house, and Nijimin stan witnesses all of this, and at this point the Nijimin stan actually evolves into a way more powerful Pokemon known as the Nijimin Stalker, because this man absolutely goes ballistic seeing this. Nijimin and Kaname have an extremely fake conversation where they're both relieved that Aya is alive, not because they care for her, but because they both want to hurt her in some way, shape, or form, you know? Really healthy and cool people, guys. Nijimin is like, I want to unalive Aya, but then it would make her hot older brother sad, so I can't. Kaname is like, I can use this girl if she's also a magical girl. So it seems like Kaname kinda knows what's going on. Anyways, as Nijimin leaves, the Nijimin Stalker believes that he had defiled her queen or some cringe shit and loses even more brain cells, reaching peak insanity. Back at the hospital, the white-haired girl named Kosame Amagai gives her blood to Shioi, who regains consciousness. It turns out that both Aya and Yatsumura survived because of this blood too. Kosame is a young magical girl with a stick shaped like a box cutter that allows the person who uses it on themselves to feed their blood to someone else, healing them physically. Honestly, as a concept, I felt like Kosame's entire character was very, very questionable, and I personally had a lot of issues with it, but I'll talk more about that in detail later. Yatsumura wakes up, and even though she had just lost her original reason to live, revenge, she resolves to live a little longer for Aya's sake. Shioi and Kosame walk into their room, and we get more of a lore drop here. We find out that Kosame actually got her magical stick from a different magical girl site, and there's actually more than one website. So I guess it's not just www.magicalgirl.com, but now we have like www.magicalgirl.org or www.magicalgirl.edu or even www.magicalgirl.gov. Anyway, Kosame then asks the others to join in on their fight, as we are shown glimpses of even more magical girls that are going to be introduced into the story, even though the story is already struggling to keep up with the sheer number of characters that it already has. Yep, that's a recipe for fucking success right there. There are many magical girls out there, and each website has their own administrator. However, regardless of the site, each one has a backdoor to access the Tempest countdown page. We also learned that the Tempest will bring an end to this world as we know it, and open a doorway into a new world. But in the process, most of humanity will be destroyed. The arrival is inevitable, but there's one way to survive the Tempest: to satiate the king's hunger. The king feeds on humanity's negative energy. This energy can be collected and stored inside the magical girl sticks, and only the one who uses their stick the most and collects the most negative energy can survive the Tempest. Kind of makes sense, but if you really think about it, this also doesn't make sense at all as a system, you know? Because they want you to use the sticks to collect more negative energy, but the more you use the stick, the closer you are to dying. So like, I don't know, something's smelling a little fishy here. Yeah, so it turns out the administrators don't give a shit about the girls at all. They are giving sticks to unfortunate girls, and they are just collecting their negative energy. Then they start to tell them about the Tempest and how to survive it, and of course they begin to unalive each other. The girls are forced to use their sticks more and more, you know, to fight, to defend themselves, to do whatever, and that allows them to collect more negative energy, which would directly go to feed the king. However, the girls themselves wouldn't be able to survive long enough, as the sticks directly affect their lifespan. It is a messed up system, you know. The admins were effectively just tricking these poor unfortunate girls, but at the same time, I guess if you really took a step back in the moment, it's pretty easy to see like, this makes no fucking sense. As the girls figure this out, we see that the admins are also having a meeting of the minds, where they're all like, damn, these magical girls are smarter than we thought. We need to begin eliminating those who know too much. They then begin unaliving magical girls, showing that they never truly intended for anyone to survive. To survive, our cast of magical girls have to ally together to fight back against the administrators. They plot to abduct one of the administrators to get some answers, which seems like a really good idea, guys. I don't know. I mean, Yatsumura thanks Aya for protecting her with her life and says that if she can keep living, it won't be for revenge anymore. But now she doesn't have a place to stay anymore, so she ends up staying at Aya's house. Episode 7 begins with Kosame telling them the truth that although her powers did heal them, the lifespan they expanded by using the magical sticks will never come back. None of them will ever reach old age, which is depressing as fuck. Yatsumura then says she wants to go to the beach with Aya before they die, and I'm just like, well, if this isn't a death flag, then I don't know what is. We're now introduced to a bunch of new characters. Yeah, they all basically become like the Avengers of edgy magical girls. Ultimately, a lot of these new characters don't end up mattering that much in terms of the show. Like, they are now part of the show, and they do stay for the rest of the show, but ultimately they're just side characters that end up blowing up the cast so much that it takes away a lot of focus from the main characters. One of the new characters is this young girl with an old butler. In the second scene she appears, she tells a butler to take off his clothes, and she steps on him to get into her helicopter, and then he just moans. I'm so dumb, bro. What the fuck is this? Anyways, her power is that she can fly on a broom. What? We also meet Katana Girl, you know, a girl who fights with a magical katana. Then there's Super Speed / Strength Girl, whose magical stick enables her to have, well, superhuman speed / strength. The only new character that does play somewhat of a bigger role than the others is Kyo. Kyo is a transgender girl who unfortunately gets treated like shit by her peers for being transgender. Her power is that she's able to link directly within her target's sensory system to control their body, experience their senses, and even communicate with them using telepathy. I do like the concept that the magical girl site acknowledged Kyo as a girl, and therefore she was also assigned to be a magical girl regardless of her background. However, the show doesn't really do much more with this concept because it's too busy being focused on literally the other 900 things that's going on in the show, and I personally don't think I'm knowledgeable enough about the topic to give a full opinion on it, so I'm gonna leave this topic here. Anyways, the edgy Avengers assemble, and I can almost hear, you know, the Avengers theme playing in the background. At school, Nijimin approaches Aya and Yatsumura to talk about Shioi. Nijimi ends up agreeing to help them out with their situation, but only if she's allowed to unalive Shioi afterwards with her own hands. And as if it was fate, Shioi also ends up transferring to their same school in the same class as Nijimin that day. Bruh. Nijimin, of course, immediately gets up and tries to command her to unalive herself, but Yatsumura stops her and covers her mouth. Aya takes Nijimin's magical stick, aka her panties, so she can't use the magic. Aya raises the panties up and the guys begin to cheer as Nijimin begins to bawl her eyes out. Yatsumura then swipes the panties and runs away, and I'm just witnessing this happen in just pure unfiltered shock, just completely stunned, because I'm thinking back to episode 1, right? Episode 1. Episode fucking 1. And then I'm just watching this scene and I'm just like, huh? Is this even the same fucking show? It is kind of absurd to me how wildly different the tone of the show has become. Anyways, they meet up at the park and Nijimin immediately commands Shioi to die once again, but nothing happens. The Avengers assemble once again, and it turns out that Aya, Yatsumura, and Shioi's sticks are missing. So while they look for their missing magical sticks, the other Avengers will protect them. Back to Sarina, who still makes me groan. She encounters Nana, the site admin, who thanks her for collecting the sticks and asks for them, but Sarina responds that she's gonna keep the sticks until she gets her revenge, but Nana then threatens her with violence. The quirky cast expands as Shioi also ends up asking to stay at Aya's house. And of course, we need a bath scene with the three of them all taking a bath at the same time because anime. Okay, I know I keep saying because anime. It's supposed to be a joke, but it's kind of sad how it's starting to feel like it's not that much of a joke sometimes, because like the more I watch these trashy shows, the more I'm just like, why is there like so much bullshit like this? Can we have more like Ghibli type shit instead of like the TV balancing type shit, please? All jokes aside, we do see Aya and Yatsumura joking around and messing with each other here, and with how edgy and depressing the show can get, it was genuinely a nice thing to see. Aya then gets a call from Kosame and Kyo, who tell her that Yatsumura has not long left to live, and it could be the end if she ever uses a magical stick power ever again. Episode 8 starts again with the Nijimin stalker, and at this point, I'm just like, why do we need this dude? Like, what purpose does he even serve in the story? I don't get it. I don't even know his name. Anyways, he continues to hate Kaname as he continues to stalk him and Nijimin on their hangouts. I mean, this has to be like the final epic showdown between Nijimin stalker and Kaname, right? Anyways, of course, we got a beach episode. Yeah, yep, like what the fuck? For the first half of the episode, the tone is mostly very light, you know, like your basic ass beach episode and any other anime. We also see that Nijimin and Shioi are getting along a little too well for people who were, I don't know, literally trying to like unalive each other an episode ago, like they're just at each other's throats and shit. And of course, there's fan service. You cannot legally have a beach episode without fan service, you know, they can arrest you for that, you know, they can arrest you for not having fan service in a beach episode. For legal reasons, that's a joke. I mean, it does make sense story-wise. They're on a time limit towards their death, so they should be able to enjoy their lives while they can. Sure, I agree with that. And Yatsumura did say she wanted to go to the beach with Aya, so it is technically part of the story, you know, part of the plot. But do we really need the fan service? We got a whole moment where Aya and Yatsumura paraglide together, and the two genuinely have a fun time and actually smile. Aya promises that they'll come to the beach together again one more time before they die, and they make a pinky promise. As wholesome as this is and as sad as this is, I'm also like, at this point there's a 99.9% that this motherfucker ain't gonna survive till the end, okay? However, they all realize that Nijimin's panties are missing. Well, it turns out that it was Kaname who took the magical stick, as it's revealed to us that he had been heavily manipulating Nijimin into basically telling him everything. The truth about the magical girl's sight, their powers, and well, basically everything. Nijimin then asks him to get the panties back for her, and he obliges. But guess what he does when he actually gets the panties? Well, yeah, he puts them on. Yeah, only to use the magical girl power, of course, you know. Nothing weird about it, right, guys? Anyways, we finally get the final confrontation between Nijimin Stalker and Kaname. Nijimin Stalker takes out a knife and starts to attack him. However, Kaname commands him to get down on his knees and to drop the knife. He then destroys Nijimin Stalker's spirit by boasting that he's wearing the panties of the idol that he loves so much. This man takes off his pants at some point and literally shows that he's wearing an idol's panties, and he's like, ha ha ha, look, you know that idol you love so much? I'm wearing her panties. What the fuck am I watching, bro? Like, at this point, the show has just gone off the rails completely, okay? The train has left the station, and instead of staying on the tracks like it's supposed to be, it started floating upwards and then started to spiral into 10 different directions at once. It's just, what is going on here? Kaname then tells the Nijimin Stalker to pick up the knife, head to the water, and delete himself. Obviously, he can't refuse because of the magical stick powers, so yeah, he does exactly that. And I'm sitting here just kind of questioning the entire point of this character. Like, he's been in the show since like episode 3. the beginning. Why? What was the point? We didn't even see him interact with Nijimin or actually talk to Nijimin or do anything. He just took up screen time and wasted it. Screen time that could have been used for other characters that actually fucking mattered to the story. I don't know. It just makes no damn sense, but whatever. Anyways, after Nijimin stalker's death, Kaname then is like, what is this? I don't feel bad at all. I don't feel any guilt. Is it because I'm a god? Nah, it's probably because you're a piece of shit, but okay. Anyways, Aya witnesses this entire thing happen and she hides. However, as Aya walks away with their friends, she turns back to see that Kaname is staring right at her, smiling with probably the creepiest visual that I've ever seen in this show. This man looks like a fucking menace, bro. I gotta admit, this is a pretty good freaky visual of him, okay? Aya's put in a tough situation once again. She knows the whole truth about Kaname getting Nijimin's panties and how Nijimin was the info leak and everyone might be in danger. Kyo, who is also connected to Aya with her powers, also knows the truth now because I guess she can read Aya's mind. Aya doesn't want everyone to attack her older brother, but she also doesn't want him to hurt anyone else. So she feels very stuck. Nijimin's stalker's body is found by the police, who believes that he deleted himself initially. However, one of the detectives, a guy who clearly looks like he's not supposed to be just a side character, but is basically treated like a side character until the last minute of the fucking show, finds it suspicious. He finds a picture that Nijimin's stalker held, which had a lot of messy ass psychotic handwriting on it, including Kaname's full name. Episode 9 begins with Kaname and Nijimin at Nijimin's place. Very predictably, Kaname ends up using the panty powers on Nijimin herself. And also we get more than just one crotch shot where this dude is just holding on to his crotch for dear life. Like, we really needed these crotch shots, guys. Like, it was necessary for the plot, okay? He's about to tell Nijimin to unalive herself, but super speed / strength girl ends up saving Nijimin by punching Kaname, and I won't even lie, bro, I actually jumped a little bit and started cheering when I saw this. Like, finally, after 8 full episodes, this dude gets his comeuppance in some way. God, it took them long enough. Jesus. However, Nijimin, who was unfortunately under the control of Kaname, begins to choke super strength / speed girl, and Kaname commands her to super speed assassinate Kyo. Kyo is then injured heavily. They end up bringing Kyo to where the others are staying. The others were staying at the Katana girl's house for safety purposes, but this ends up doing jack shit because Kaname ends up infiltrating the place without any issues anyways. So much for safety. Everyone is upset at Aya for not saying anything about Kaname, but Yatsumura comes to her defense. To atone, Aya volunteers to give her blood to heal Kyo using Kosame's magical stick powers. Kaname then walks into the room with his ever so trashy narcissistic attitude. Kyo, who is kind of healing right now, is able to override Nijimin's hypnosis for a second and talks to Nijimin using telepathy. It finally clicks for Nijimin that she had been taken advantage of and that it was basically her own fault that people were hurt really badly. However, she snaps, unable to keep her cool, and jumps in to attack Kaname, who retaliates by slicing her with the Katana girl's katana. We then see Nijimin's past. Her dad had deleted himself because of an insurmountable amount of debt. After this, she received her magical stick and used it to change her family members' memories about her father's death. Anyway, back in the present, Nijimin uses her last ounce of strength to break a cup and attacks Kaname's throat with it, making him unable to speak his commands anymore. At this point, Kaname is straight up a demented, inhuman mess, both appearance-wise and personality-wise. Like, look how ugly this guy looks right now, bro. Before Kaname can do anything else, an invisible force stops him from doing anything by stepping on his arm, and some kind of gas is released, rendering everyone unconscious. Everyone wakes up to see that Kaname had disappeared, and unfortunately, Nijimin had died. However, she died with a smile, as while her life may not have been the best, she was able to spread happiness and smiles for many of her fans as an idol. And shit, man, as much as this show makes me want to bash my head into a wall for a multitude of reasons, I almost did cry here, okay? Almost! Episode 10 begins with Aya being shut in her room again, feeling responsible for Nijimin's death. She is now determined to become stronger. She begins to look for the missing sticks on her own, and in the midst of her search, Sarina shows up again to confront her. We then cut to Nijimin's funeral service. Aya shows up to the service last minute with a flower and offers it to Nijimin's casket before turning to the others and pointing her teleportation gun at them. Suddenly, the entire building just blows up, and after the debris clears up, we see that Nana is watching over the damage as the blue-haired, definitely not a side character but is treated like a side character detective, walks up to Nana, and it's revealed that this detective named Misumi actually is working with Nana for some reason to collect a bunch of magical sticks. It also turns out that this Misumi guy was the one who stopped Kaname, and he says that he took care of him, as we see Kaname chained up in some dungeon-like space. At this point, there are too many damn characters for me to keep count of, man. Like, who the fuck is this Misumi dude? What is he doing here? And again, why do we need the Nijimin stalker character in the first place? Turns out, Aya had saved everyone by teleporting them away right before Nana blew the building up. It's also revealed that Sarina had joined hands with Aya. Aya then tells everyone to hand over their sticks as she doesn't want to let anyone else die, as a form of atonement. Everyone obviously wants to fight too, but this argument continues until Yatsumura calmly walks up to her and slaps her in the face with reality, both physically and emotionally. Yatsumura asks Aya to share the pain as Sarina returns them their magical sticks. Sarina says that she hates the admins and ends up joining the Avengers. Episode 11 begins with them trying to ambush Nana. Through some random lore they're able to track an admin down, whatever, it doesn't really matter, and they begin a showdown against one of the admins that's not Nana. However, this admin is actually hella strong, which is a surprise to absolutely nobody except the characters in the universe themselves. They end up overpowering this admin by teleporting him to a different location where Sarina ambushes him with her magical yo-yo. The admin dies, and it's revealed that the admins actually used to be humans themselves, which is actually a twist I found interesting. It's too bad it's already episode fucking 11. The other magical girls are also ambushed by another admin who I guess can just shadow clone Jutsu herself. Nana ambushes the main characters and shoots Sarina with finger guns, pew pew, putting her out of commission. Nana had used the other admin as a decoy to get the magical girls out in the open. Nana shoots as Yatsumura uses a bunch of magical stick powers at once to protect everyone else while attacking Nana in a last-ditch effort to win. Unfortunately, she was only able to get Nana's arm. Yatsumura begins to cough out blood as her emblem fades away. She tells Aya that she was glad she met her and thanks her before dying. Although it was really sad, I have to admit that it was so predictable that I didn't really feel like that emotional about it. Oh god, am I turning into Kaname? Why do I feel no guilt? Am I perhaps a god trapped in a human body? The episode then ends with a twist. Yatsumura is sitting at the admin's table being congratulated for being chosen to be an administrator. What? Excuse me, ma'am? I actually didn't expect the show to bamboozle me like this at the last second. Too bad the twist isn't worth jack shit though, because episode 12 is a mess. In episode 12, the last episode, we learn a bunch more. The king is apparently the most unfortunate girl in the world and is the one who will cause the tempest. Yatsumura is unable to escape the grasp of the evil powers. Back in the real world, Aya teleports the others away to safety. Yatsumura then wakes up, her eyes turn red, her hair becomes gray, and she is reborn as an administrator. To become an official admin, she has to collect more negative energy. I mean, isn't this the same as the process of becoming a Reddit mod, you know? I don't fucking know, bro. Anyway, Yatsumura begins to attack Aya. The others continue to fight the Shadow Clone Jutsu admin, and the Witch Girl comes to save them. Katana Girl jumps on top of a tower, collects the power of lightning, and obliterates the admin with one slash. One slash is all it takes! I have no idea where the f this power came from, or who this girl even is, but I guess I'll take it because at least it looked hella badass. Aya teleports herself and Yatsumura to the beach in order to fulfill the last promise she made with Yatsumura. Aya teleports one of Yatsumura's bullets into the water, which makes a giant splash, and Yatsumura begins to notice it. Aya, while being choked by Yatsumura, tells her that she was the first person who had ever said she had value. Aya tells Yatsumura that she wants to live for her. She no longer resents herself or the world because she was able to meet Yatsumura. Aya then teleports herself into Yatsumura's past? I have no idea, but child Yatsumura is crying right after her tragic incident, and Aya comes into this flashback and gives Yatsumura a glowing heart? I am genuinely so damn confused right now. Back to the present, Yatsumura regains her consciousness and begins to cry. Aya says, let's live together, and they point the gun towards Nana, who responds that she's never met magical girls like this. I have no idea what just happened. No idea what Nana means. No idea if Yatsumura's alive or dead or administrator or human or I don't know. So is Yatsumura just revived now? Did her lifespan just become longer? Or is she dead but half alive? What just happened? What? Nana asks if these two are unfortunate souls, and they say that they are not unfortunate. Time begins again as Nana is run over by a train and the sun comes up and everyone basically survives. Sarina is healed and actually says thank you for the first time in the show. The girls are all happy and joyous as they had survived this nightmare. For now, I guess? Dude, I don't know. Like, what just... I still don't know what just happened, bro. Back to the random ass detective. He walks into a room full of magical girl sticks, and Kaname is also chained up in there. The detective tells Kaname that there's no point if it's not a girl using the stick, and then he begins to do some stuff to Kaname that I refuse to explain in detail. To be fair, they don't explicitly show much of what's happening here, but I can tell you it's not good. The admins begin to discuss the state of things. The top admin says that Aya and Yatsumura had committed a grave sin. They had apparently ruined the king's plans, and this is not a forgivable sin. The king is angry. The last moment is the king herself waking up and saying, let's make them go through some more misfortune. And that is the end of Magical Girl Sight. At least for now, I guess. I mean, it really did seem like they were setting up for a season 2, and I know the manga went on for longer than this, but also since it's been like 7 years since this show aired, I doubt we'll ever actually see what happens after this. And to be completely honest, I don't even think I'm interested in knowing what happens after this shit. Magical Girl Site made some attempts to tell a meaningful story, and well, emphasis on the word attempts. Okay, attempts were made, sure, but those attempts kinda crashed and burned, collapsing upon the pressure it built like a dying star. Now it's time for me to talk about some of my opinions on this show, and phew boy, there are a lot of opinions I have on this show. I think the easiest way for me to describe the show was half-assed. It started so many different things and couldn't commit to any of them. The show couldn't pick a lane. Is it a story about abuse, depression, and overcoming life's misfortunes despite how much they might hurt? Or is it a story about friendship and how meeting just one person could change your life for the better? Is it a battle royale with magical girls trying to unalive each other for some reason? Or is it an epic story of these magical girls having to overcome insurmountable odds to defeat an unknown supernatural enemy who's trying to end the world? Well, actually, it's all of the above. But imagine trying to fit all of this shit into a single 12-episode season. It's like trying to flush like 50 different objects down a toilet and being surprised that the toilet didn't actually flush. It just ended up exploding from the bottom and flooding the basement. Based on a real story, but you know what? Of course, it's not going to go anywhere meaningful, and it only ended up hurting the show, especially because all of this indecisiveness ended up trivializing some of the very serious topics brought up in the beginning of the show. The show's tone is also weirdly like a shitstorm. The show begins on the darkest note humanly possible, with some of the most messed up stuff happening to the main character, but a few episodes later, they're just like in the classroom stealing panties and like having that basic ass like anime gag where it's like, I got the panties, and the dudes are all like, hell yeah, panties! It's the same as the story itself. The tone couldn't decide what it wanted it to be. Aya is supposed to be this extremely depressed girl, but it seems like she just completely got over all of that because she met Yatsumura and made a friend. Which, yes, making a friend who genuinely cares about you in this lonely world is a very important thing and can definitely contribute to someone's mental wellness. But I also think that mental health isn't that simple of a concept to just be like, I bet y'all I got a homie now, so I don't want to die anymore. Like, I feel like it's something that takes time and energy to actually work through these issues. And I don't personally agree with the messaging of the show, especially because they put all of the abuse and trauma on the back burner for most of the show, even though it was such a huge deal in the early episodes, and it was the center focus of episode 1 of the show. I understand what they're trying to go for. You know, shows like Attack on Titan also deal with really grotesque stuff, dark themes, messed up stuff, but AOT doesn't then turn around and throw you into a beach episode where half the show is fan service. Although, imagine if Attack on Titan did have fan service. Let's talk about episode 1. Okay, episode 1 of the show was one of the most awful viewing experiences I've ever had. It's hard to even joke about it because it's basically just Aya getting absolutely obliterated from every corner of her life. She's just constantly getting horribly abused, bullied, and mistreated anywhere she goes. The initial thing we see about Aya is she's thinking about dying all the time. The people around her are either comically evil or willfully just ignorant. It's truly one of the most horrifying and heart-wrenching episodes to watch. Even the stray cat, Aya's one bright star in her life, is brutally, you know, unalived by one of the bullies who just lets it get hit by a train. That's some sociopathic behavior, bro. And of course, as if the show just really wants us to understand how edgy and deep it is, we have an upperclassman literally try to assault Aya twice in the same episode. 2 times in the same episode. Are they going for the Guinness World Records for most assaults in a single anime episode? It's just genuinely nasty to watch. And while I would understand if the show stayed focused on Aya's trauma and mental health, and it was a story actually about her overcoming these misfortunes, and we see how she does it, the story quickly proves to us that it's not a story about Aya. It's a story about 100 gazillion different things all at the same time. It felt to me like they just used the horrible abuse that Aya goes through more as a convenient plot device to establish to the viewer, hey guys, this is a deep show. We're not afraid to directly show you awful shit because this story is going to be spitting facts and logic about life. Guys, we are telling a good story here. Except this horrible stuff is basically completely forgotten about in lieu of having crotch shots of Kaname. This show reminds me of another anime I've reviewed in the past, Midori Shoujo Tsubaki. You can check my video on it if you want, but Midori is known for basically being so controversial and so hard to watch that that it was basically banned from showing. But episode 1 of Magical Girl Sight reminded me of Midori and how messed up and direct it all is. Both of them don't shy away from showing the raw, unfiltered horribleness of these dark topics that it wants to talk about. And while it can be argued that maybe Magical Girl Sight was trying to do something similar to Midori, which is to tell a story about horrible abuse, the difference between Midori and Magical Girl Sight is that Midori is about the abuse and how the titular character ends up dealing with these horrible things. Although it's not a very happy ending or a happy story, it does focus on these things. Versus in Magical Girl Sight, all of this horrible shit is just all convenient plot devices to try and convince the viewer that they're trying to tell a deep story. And I mean, I do feel like they could have told a meaningful story if they actually wanted to tell it, but they didn't. I also think that they definitely 100% could have toned down how messed up episode 1 was. It felt like just, hey, let's throw in some more edgy shit and more edgy shit and more edgy shit and more edgy shit and more. Like at some point while watching this, I'm just like, okay, I get it. Aya goes through horrible shit. I get it. Yeah, these horrible things do unfortunately happen in our real world too. And I won't say that these topics shouldn't be in the show at all. I think abuse, mental health, and things like that shouldn't be shied away from. They have to be talked about because they happen. But I also feel like there's gotta be a way to show that without making a whole episode basically them shoving the most nasty, awful tasting shit down my throat the entire time. And this also wouldn't be such a big issue with me if the show then didn't turn around and have just the most unnecessary weird fan service and sexual undertones. For one, all of the main cast are still young high schoolers. Okay, let's keep that in mind. Shioi as a character is basically there for the fan service half the time. Kaname, while wearing Nijimin's stick, again constantly has these crotch shots and he holds onto his crotch almost every time. Like the one thing I needed even less than Kaname himself being on the screen is having his crotch on the screen. Oh, and also just the fact that like Nijimin's magical stick is literally just a pair of panties. I'm sorry, I can't tell if this is supposed to be a gag or not, and it feels so weirdly out of place in a show that begins the first episode with and sexual assault. Like, it could have been literally any other piece of clothing. Gloves, socks, a fucking fedora, or cat ears, bro. Why does it have to be panties? There is not a singular reason in the known universe that will rationally make sense to me other than just fan service. It's so fucking weird that it takes me out of the show sometimes. Like, if you're gonna make a story about dark and edgy topics, if you're gonna start the story off with showing the most graphic depictions of abuse possible, then at least be mature enough to do that and then keep the tone of the serious story you're trying to tell instead of putting in some weird ass nonsensical sexual bullshit. It actually makes me mad. Now lastly, I need to talk about the characters. I want to say that I liked Aya's character, but to be honest, I think it's more that I like the concept of Aya's character. She's a depressed high school girl who has been treated so poorly by the people around her, and then we see her change and overcome these misfortunes despite what's been thrown at her. I don't think it's ever a bad thing to directly address stories about mental health in a show. Mental health is important and it needs to be talked about regardless of where you are in the world. But I do think that the show should have focused way more on that story about mental health. Unfortunately, Aya's character becomes a bit more surface level as the show goes on, but they try to play it off as if she had hella character development, which sure, she did. But also, I don't know, it just didn't really sit well with me after watching an entire episode of watching this poor girl getting and that being the sole focus of the first episode. But then we end up not hearing anything about Aya's thoughts, what her process has been, until the last episode. I don't know, man. I guess I feel that this is such an important concept that to me, it just felt like the show was just trying to be edgy instead of actually trying to tell a meaningful story about mental health. Again, it just felt so half-assed to me. I actually think that Yatsumura was the best character in the show. Her backstory is dark and depressing, but also it's not an entire 20 minutes of watching her get abused. And while she did some really messed up stuff, like a burglar as a form of revenge, you also know why she's doing this. I mean, it's still all surface level as hell, but I think Yatsumura's character is at least a bit better presented than Aya's character. Yatsumura starts off as this cold person who doesn't allow anyone else to get close to her. She starts off the show as the edgy character, maybe a little too edgy, but we do see her edgy personality begin to soften as she becomes closer to Aya. I think if the show was just about Aya and Yatsumura's friendship, I think the show would have been much better. I think Yatsumura and Aya's friendship is genuinely the only good part of the show. Straight up, I genuinely enjoyed the two of them getting closer to each other and supporting each other through their darkest moments. Unfortunately, this friendship is only a single aspect of the show and not the entire show. So yeah, you can kind of see where this is going now. Let's talk about Kosame. I really don't like the concept of Kosame's character. She's a 13-year-old girl with the tendency to self-harm, but that self-harm is directly linked to how her powers work. Her magical stick is in the shape of a box cutter, and how it works is that you have to give yourself a cut with it and feed the blood to someone else, and that heals them. Which, as a concept, I don't know, it's a little too edgy for me. There's a moment in the show where Kosame gets yelled at by Shioi and she begins to panic, so then she just whips out like 10-15 pills and takes them all at once to calm down her anxiety, which feels way too over-exaggerated to feel like a serious moment, but it's presented so seriously that it doesn't even feel like a bit. There's even a bit where two of the newly introduced magical girls begin to argue, and Kosame begins to panic because she doesn't like arguments. And then she's like, oh my god guys, you're making me want to cut myself. As if it's all just a quirky little bit and it's supposed to be like a normal funny interaction between these characters kind of thing. But I feel like this character is a terrible representation of mental health issues and especially self-harm. And the fact that the show trivializes it sometimes just doesn't sit well with me. Self-harm isn't a personality trait. It's something that people actually struggle with and suffer through in silence and privacy. Not something people will flaunt or threaten to do in the moment in a group setting. I see that the show is trying to present these tough topics and situations that people suffer from, but it feels like sometimes the show just ends up trivializing these topics into quirky jokes. I'm not saying that you can't make dark jokes. Hell, I think half my channel is basically dark jokes, let's be real. But these jokes hit so differently when you can directly see that Kosame does struggle with self-harm, and it's something she does frequently. It's hard to find that something I can chuckle at when it's like right there in front of me. I don't know, I mean, I can't say much else about this, but this was easily one of the parts of the show that really ruined it for me. Alright, let's keep on chugging on this haterade train. Kaname is easily one of the worst, most awful, most garbage, trash, piece of shit characters in anything I've ever seen. He's a charisma black hole. In fact, I didn't even realize someone's charisma could be this low until I watched the show. Somehow, he's unlocked a new level of unlikability. On a side note, the dad sucks too. He has an ego so high that he genuinely begins to believe that he's a god at some point. He's just someone that's so comically evil, but I feel like it's presented so horribly that it's not even fun to watch him in the show. There is no personality with this guy beyond just being a piece of shit, and that's what makes it so hard to watch him. He makes me roll my eyes every time he shows up. And the thing is, his story didn't even end in a satisfying way either. I mean, it did seem like they were aiming for a season 2, so there was supposed to be a little more story with Kaname. And I did read on the magical girl site wiki that supposedly by the end of the manga, Kaname had softened up and his relationship with Aya improved or whatever, but we're really gonna be forced to watch all the horrible shit that he's ever done in the show and then just end the series with, oh well, he's softer now, so it's all okay. It's the worst kind of story arc. Speaking of characters I hate, Sarina, the bully, is another character that I can't stand. She starts off the show being comically evil. It's like she started all of the bullying and she continued it, but when Aya ended up using the magical stick in retaliation, Sarina then gets even more mad at Aya and blamed her for their deaths. But also, again, like, Sarina started all of this. She really thought she could just be a piece of shit and expect nothing to happen in retaliation at all? Really? It's also just really hard to feel much sympathy for this character when you are shown clearly in like HD what she did to Aya in specific detail. Like, you get to watch the actual abuse happen. Sarina then becomes even more of a villain, and after being saved from dying by Aya, she just fades into obscurity until she comes back at the end. She has clearly changed a little bit and is even willing to work with Aya for the greater good. I think part of why I hate this character so much is because I feel like she didn't do jack shit that warranted this sort of character development. We see her a lot when she's at her worst. We barely see her anymore after she gets saved by Aya, only glimpses and pieces. I do think that Aya saving Sarina's life was an interesting twist to all of this, because it did show a lot about Aya as a person, and I was also kind of interested as to how this might change Sarina's character. But then she just disappears for half the show, and we barely actually see what she goes through before she reunites with Aya. So of course, the only impression I have left of this character is her ass being an evil little bitch. So how can I even like this character or accept this redemption arc story when she barely did anything that could even remotely make up for all of the damage she caused in the first place? It just doesn't work for me, man. I think Sarina as a character concept is interesting. I won't say that it's not interesting, but in this show, it was executed so poorly that I fucking hate Sarina regardless of what she does at the end of the show. And then there's other characters like Shioi and Nijimin who I didn't hate, but I also didn't really care for them at all. I think they were interesting at first, but they were very quickly then overshadowed by the 900 gazillion other different different that was happening in the show. Nijimin, for example, her friendships with the other characters felt so unexplored to the point where her death just didn't have the impact I think the creators wanted it to have. It's unfortunate. And Shioi, like, why does she even exist, bro? Like, despite her being considered one of the main characters, her character never felt deeper to me than just stupid psychotic killer girl plus fan service. But then you look at the Magical Girl site wiki and you go on Shioi's page and it says she's supposed to be 13 years old. So I feel even less comfortable with this now. What are they doing, bro? There was also that one stupid subplot with the Nijimin stand. I don't get the point of this subplot. All in all, Magical Girl site is a show with a lot of potential, but is bogged down by excess. The excess edginess makes it hard to take it seriously sometimes. The excess characters make it so there's less focus on the main characters. The excess storylines make the show impossible to keep straight. Like, there's some good in here, but it's just so bogged down by all the bad stuff in the show that it makes it not worth watching at all. I think a battle royale Magical Girl anime could be really interesting, and I really love the concept of the administrator and the girls who all hate each other having to ally with each other and look over each other's differences to defeat the biggest form of evil. I love that kind of shit, bro. I wanted to like this show, but I don't. I don't completely hate it, but the flaws of the show are really hard to look past because it does involve some serious stuff. All in all, I'm gonna give this anime a 4 out of 10, okay? There's some decent things, but it's not worth watching, bro. It's really not. Anyways, if you made it to this point, thank you so much for watching this whole video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe for more anime content. As usual, huge shout out to my members. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. So thank you so much again, and I will see you in the next video that I decide to make. Peace out.